If you tried to host this on GitHub Pages, anybody try that? Right now, you're going to have a bad time. It's not just going to work. Because what's at the root of this thing? Any of our Create React App things. This stuff. There's no index.html there. So it'll just show the README. Where is index.html? It's in the public directory, right? But even then, our JavaScript isn't going to work because it's not even real JavaScript yet. It's JSX. Now, our development server that we get when we run yarn start just compiles all of that into real JavaScript automatically and does the right thing. But if we want to actually host this somewhere, we have to do a proper production build. I've mentioned before how good the README is for Create React App. In fact, the API party README is that right this minute. So at the bottom of the user guide, near the end, oh, well, this one, heck, this breaks it all the way out. We have a deployment section that includes instructions for deploying to Firebase and GitHub Pages, wouldn't you know it. So let's just check out the user guide. Okay, deployment. npm run build, or yarn build, creates a build directory with a production build of your app. Why? Package.json has that as one of the scripts, build, which runs React scripts build. So we can run yarn build. Let's make sure. Yarn build. And let's look at our files. All of a sudden, I have a build folder here. And as it goes through this process, I'm going to get the actual static website. So here you see index.html is here now. And inside the static folder, I see CSS and JavaScript. And there's a single JavaScript file. And then a map file. So all the JavaScript for the entire project just got compiled into one big JS file that is completely unreadable. Because it makes it as small as possible. That's what the .map file is for. So if you look at it in your console, it'll still tell you what line numbers things are really on. That's what the map does. So that's what happens when you run build. So we could just copy that build folder to some web host. We'll still have a problem with routing, though. Because, again, it has to give us index.html every time. And it's going to look for those paths to actually be real files. We want the server to give us index.html no matter what. So with GitHub Pages, you can trick it into doing that. And if you're interested in that, it is covered in the Create React App README. It tells you how to configure GitHub Pages. It's several steps. Or we're using Firebase anyway. And Firebase, as you may recall, in addition to being a real-time database and having authentication and stuff, also offers hosting. Yep. So let's read all about it in the Create React App README. Okay, it has specific instructions for Firebase. Install the Firebase command line interface if you haven't already by running npm install -g Firebase tools. I'll copy and paste that into Slack. npm install -g for global, so we can run it from anywhere. Firebase tools. The npm install -g, it does not. Now this next step does. Well, okay, 2 steps later it does. So do this from inside your chattering project. And then you can do it all later, except for, so that -g, you only have to do that once. But then you have to actually create a Firebase config inside your project folder. So next run Firebase login, just like it says here. I'm already logged in, so it's not going to do anything. But for you, hopefully it opens a new browser window for you to log into Firebase. Does anybody get an error about non-interactive mode or something? After you did the npm install-g, open a new terminal window and try again. Firebase login. It's in Slack. npm install-g Firebase-tools. So Chris, did it work in a new window?
I just closed and reopened.
Okay. Tallulah, what's up? Okay.
Still says command not found. I did the thing when you said install, so I'll just do it again.
You did npm install-g Firebase tools? I hope you haven't screwed up your path. Create React app worked earlier, so that shouldn't be related to this. Is yours okay?
Yeah, mine's fine.
Okay. Anybody else have Firebase login not working?
npm install-d Firebase-tools.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, Tallulah, what's up? Okay. Okay. If you get that error about non-interactive mode on Windows, do let's see, was it Firebase login -- interactive? So you might have to do that on Windows sometimes. I don't know why everyone doesn't have this problem on Windows. I don't know what's different about your configuration, but
Allow Firebase to collect anonymous CLI, yes.
allow it to do what?
Collect anonymous CLI usage and error reporting.
That's up to you. I say no.
And you just log in.
Yep.
You always say no.
I don't need more tracking in my life.
If I'm using a beta, so I don't know. But if I'm using something
Well, sure. Yeah.
Russia has already instead of all our routers. Yeah, so it doesn't matter anymore.
If I have the option to say no, I'm going to say no. So anyway, having logged into Firebase now, inside your project folder, and we'll do this for Chattering now. You can do it for API Party later. That way you can actually have it hosted somewhere. It says run Firebase init. So keep in mind, this is in the README. Here, I'll actually send a link straight to this. Well, no, I'll do it on the actual Create React App site. Create React App. Create React App. Let's scroll down to the user guide, deployment section, specifically the section on Firebase. There it is. All right, I'm linking this, sending you this link in Slack, so there's no excuse for not being able to do it later with API Party. But we'll go through all the steps right now. So we'll run Firebase init. It'll ask you which Firebase CLI features you want to set up for this folder. We already have database. We just want hosting. So just arrow down to hosting, and as it says on the screen, press space to select the feature. So hosting's all we need. The rest is already set up.
My errors aren't working.
There's one other person whose arrows weren't working too. Anybody else having this arrow problem? Really? Okay, my suggestion for right now is Google it. Google Firebase init. Arrow's not working. For everybody else, arrow down to it, hit space. It'll ask you which Firebase project. So for me, that would be Chattering S2 afternoon. This one's important. This is a non-default thing. And keep in mind, it does say this in the instructions in the README. Choose build as the public directory, right? That's the folder that actually got built with our static site. It's going to default to public. So be sure you say build. Configure as a single page app. In other words, rewrite all URLs to index.html. Yes, that's exactly what we want to do. Otherwise, React Router will not work. So say yes. Index.html already exists. Overwrite. No. Let's keep the one we have. So we got asked that because we'd already run yarn build once. And you'll notice it says writing configuration into firebase.json and project information to .firebase.rc. So there's a couple new config files it actually added. What else does it say here? Important. You need to set proper HTTP caching headers for serviceworker.js in firebase.json, or you will not be able to see changes after the first deployment. That sounds bad. So it says it should be added inside the hosting key in firebase.json. So I'll take this section that says headers, whatever, copy that. Let's open firebase.json. There's already a section called hosting. So after rewrites here, I'll put a comma and I'll paste in what it said. So this is what my firebase.json looks like now. I'll copy that. So here's my firebase.json. I pasted in this headers section. Now, after you create a production build with npm run build, which we can do one more time, yarn build, you can deploy it by running firebase deploy. See if it's all true. Firebase deploy. Deploy complete. Here's the hosting URL. Behold, on the real internet.
Whoa.
If I sign in, does it do the right thing?
Okay, for when your error keys don't work, you can select it with the number, and it's one base.
Oh, okay. Okay. Did you hear that, Stephen?
The first element is 1. It goes 1.
You can just hit 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever.
We're just running a command line, so that works.
You did what?
We're just running a command line.
Oh, okay, in the regular cmd.exe. Okay, cool. Hey, look, it all works. Even the routing works. Okay, does the routing work all the way? I'm on /room/parkour. If I refresh, ooh, it did not take me back to /rooms/parkour. Probably because of the way that I wrote that that rewrite in app.js. Okay, so that's not going to work on my local version either. It's always going to send me back to general. But it is going to keep me logged in, so that worked. So I would like now to copy. If you have hosting working, that's a separate issue. That's a bug we can work on tomorrow. Go ahead and copy that URL. And on your GitHub for this project, seems like you should hit edit up here and paste it into the website field, right? Just like you would if it were on GitHub Pages. That way, when someone visits your repo, they can click on there and actually see a working copy. So definitely do that. Make it much easier for people to see that your stuff actually works. Someone looking at this repo, that doesn't tell them much. Someone seeing it with a link to a working version of the site, that helps. So I would also recommend in package.json, package.json right under the name, why don't you add a field called homepage and paste in that URL. Keep in mind, must be double quotes in JSON. So homepage and a link to that.
So like whatever edits you push to GitHub, does it reflect it on Firebase?
No, you'll have to actually deploy it for that. But that brings up a good point. So to deploy, we had to run yarn build and Firebase deploy, right? So we could in package.json add a deploy script. So after eject here, don't forget the comma, double quote deploy, and say Firebase deploy. But we want to make sure it also runs yarn build every time. So if we add a script called pre-deploy, and set that to yarn build or npm run build if you don't want to absolutely require yarn for people. It'll automatically run pre-deploy before deploy. So you can always run a pre-build before build, and just running deploy is enough now. So if we just run yarn deploy, it'll automatically run yarn build, and then it will run Firebase deploy automatically when it's finished. You still have to run yarn deploy. It's not going to happen every time you push.
Or are you going to commit this file?
I am going to commit this file. So configure Firebase hosting. So now every time we make a change, just remember to do yarn deploy, and it'll work. And Firebase will be updated. Questions about all that? Remember, this is in the Create React App README. And remember, there'll be a link to that, as well as all of this information, really, on the website with today's notes. Right? The Firebase hosting stuff is in today's notes. Yeah. It'll be there, so there's no excuse for not remembering how to do this. So go ahead and do it on the other app too, API Party. May as well get it hosted somewhere. Because you're all going to do cool stuff with API Party tonight, and you're going to want to share that. Speaking of which,